Hello everyone and welcome to this new video about level design. In this episode, we're gonna see how we can use Inkscape to build a level map. This will directly continue our discussion about levels map from last time, so if you haven't watched that video yet, go and have a look at it first. Okay, so Inkscape is a free and open source vector graphics editor that you can use to design all kinds of stuff like logos, illustrations, plans and maps, web graphics and more. The great thing with vector graphics is that instead of storing the data as colored pixels in a canvas of a predetermined size, you define your entire drawing as an ensemble of mathematical operations. And this means that the drawing can be scaled up or down without any loss in quality. Hence the name of Scalable Vector Graphics, or SVG. That's super useful because it allows you to prepare variations of your design quickly and export your results for different platforms in a second. Today we're gonna explore some of the tools Inkscape has to help us build this simple level map. Note that I'll be working with Inkscape 1.2. The map we'll work on is very basic. It is a sort of tutorial level where the player just comes into a house, discovers a quick cutscene about the place, goes through a corridor and a room, finds a document along with some weapon upgrades, and finally learns the key opens locked door mechanic to enable a shortcut to the exit. Okay, so here's my new Inkscape file with a blank canvas. The very first thing we should do is enable the grid and make sure our tools snap to it so that we can draft a map with specific dimensions. To toggle on the grid, we can press the hash key on our keyboard. And if I zoom in, I see that the grid gets more precise with tinier steps. But if I really want to configure it to my liking, I'll need to open up the Document Properties panel and go to the Grids tab. Here we see that the document currently contains one grid that we can show or hide with this checkbox. I can change the steps of my grid to 10 on each axis to better see the difference between my major and minor ticks. We can pick the scale ourselves, so it doesn't matter too much as long as we are consistent. We can sort of distinguish between the two levels of grids, but it's not very clear, so I'll go over here to the major steps color and change it to red. Now I can easily count 5 ticks, which could be 1 meter or 5 meters or 10 meters, depending on what suits me best. For the moment, I'll say that 1 major tick, or in other words 1 red square, equals 1 meter. The only problem is that at this point we aren't actually snapping to this grid. If I take the Bezier line tool and put some points on my drawing, you see that they don't anchor themselves to my grid lines. That's because we need to enable snapping for our tools with this icon in the top right corner. And now if I come back to the drawing area, I see that my points are properly snapped onto the grid points. Okay, we can now easily draw some walls as thick black lines. If I'm not satisfied with some points in my curve, I can always remove them, set back the segment to a straight line with no curve handles, and then place the corner back on the grid point. The next important step is to properly organize our drawing so that elements are easy to find and to toggle on and off. For that, a good tool to use are Inkscape's layers. We can access them over here in the toolbar, which shows us the Layers panel with our current default layer and the path we created nested inside it. By double-clicking on the name of the layer, I can change it to something more explicit like walls, and then I can click on the plus icon at the top to create a new layer. My second layer will be for the flow of the level, which, as we saw previously, is about the doors, windows, stairs and other elements that determine the waypoints for our player. Make sure that you have this layer highlighted in the hierarchy so that the new objects you create are in this layer, and now you can place some doors or windows. You can have various conventions and habits. I myself like to have the doors shown in green and the windows shown in blue. Let's extend our layout a bit with some additional rooms and doors. And remember, we can always toggle off the grid to get a clearer view of the overall result. And now that I have my basic walls for this scene, I'm going to add the different floors. Here I'll have 2 because I want the right part to be above the left part. These 2 rooms will be 1 stall lower than these 2, so I'll give them a lighter grey color for the background, and to have the background color be below the wall lines, remember that you can drag the objects to the bottom of the layer in the hierarchy. Then the third layer will be for the objects and key elements the player will interact with. For now, I'll keep it simple and just add a couple of weapon upgrade spots, and the main objective, which is the location of the document to retrieve to finish the mission. Note that this is also a good opportunity to start building our legend, since the drawing is starting to contain several symbols that may not be clear instantly to outsiders. Now, at the moment, my flow is a bit incomplete. In particular, it's not clear where the entrance is, and our two floors are not technically connected by any slide or stairs or ladder. So let's first add an arrow in our flow layer to indicate that this door is the one we'll start the level with. To turn a line into an arrow, we can go to our stroke style options and use the markers to add specific start, mid or end markers, such as an arrowhead. We will also want some stairs in the corridor. I'll indicate the direction of my stairs by adding a white arrow on top of it. Again, this is just a convention that I like to use, and you could devise your own, but the main idea here is that it will help me visualize and set up the object properly when I'm in the 3D building phase. Note that, of course, this doesn't mean the stairs can only be used in that direction. It's just a way to know which way the slope is going. Okay, now that I have all of this in place, I'm going to introduce some additional elements, like the trigger zone for the initial cutscene in the first room, and the lock and key system for the final door. I personally like to display visually the link between a lock and its key, so that it is clear to me how those elements are interconnected, but you can obviously convey this info in some other way, for example with an additional document on the side, specifically for those relationships, if you fear it will overload the map. To wrap this up, I'll draw explicitly the path I intend for my player so that it is clear for everyone what the order is for all of those interest points. We will start at the door we marked earlier, experience the cutscene, then go down the stairs in the corridor and arrive in the main room. There we will have some exploration and the possibility to check out the weapon upgrade, and then we will go to the little room in the bottom left corner, grab all the interesting stuff like the main mission document and the key, before finally backtracking slightly to open the locked door. You'll notice that this path makes us pass in front of the locked door first, and only then get the key, which is a good way to tease the players and have them mentally link the two items together, instead of just picking up a key for an unknown usage. If you want, you can add intermediary arrows on each curve point and smooth out the overall curve to get a better visual of this path. As a little bonus, it can be a good idea to rename all those path and shape objects to help people navigate your hierarchy and spot items instantly from the outline. And of course, if the path display is annoying you, you can easily hide this layer from the view with the eye icon over here. And there we are! We now have a basic level map made entirely in Inkscape in just a couple of minutes. Of course, this is a very simple case with a straightforward scenario, no enemy or boss, or puzzle or specific architectural piece. But it demonstrates that this editor can be a nice tool for designing a layout like this one. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tools tutorial about level design, and that you learned a few tricks to using Inkscape for designing a level map. If you did, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and of course, don't hesitate to leave a comment with your own ideas for future level design tutorials. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and take care.